Dear AI, we are looking to purchase a house that is approximately 200 feet east, typically downwind of Foothills Parkway in Boulder. This road has approximately 50 to 60,000 cars per day on most weekdays. Where the house is located, the speed limit will be 45 miles per hour. What's the potential impact of pollution we will experience in our day-to-day lives relative to background pollution levels in Boulder, Colorado? What are the health impacts in quantitative measures? How does the background pollutant level of Boulder compare to living within the Seattle or Denver metro, for example? How does it compare to larger cities like LA or New York? How does the higher pollutant level of this potential house compare to these areas? For more concrete measurements, what are the primary pollutant concerns, and can they be measured readily with off-the-shelf handheld monitors reliably? Please list any other notes or concerns we should consider with purchasing a home in this location. And with that, welcome to the House Einstein podcast. This is House Einstein podcast 108. And I am your host, Osman Parvez, and with me is Hamish Crabb. We are with the House Einstein Real Estate Brokerage, which I should mention is separate and distinct from this podcast endeavor. The podcast, we are here to entertain you, and our attorneys recommend we make that very clear. But if you are a client of the brokerage and you want real estate advice, please reach out. You know where to find us at houseeinstein.com, and we are more than happy to help you, but please do not make any real estate or other major decisions on anything you hear in this podcast. Okay.
First read through, nailed it.
Yeah, first read through. Yeah. I feel like that little disclaimer gets a little different every time, but good enough. People get the point.
Matters. Yeah.
I mean, the mission of the brokerage is to help you make a better real estate decision, right? We're here to educate and advise when we're at the brokerage, and a lot of that tone, a lot of that ethos does percolate into this podcast. Let's not pretend otherwise. But we just don't want you making any major decisions because
for liability's sake.
Yeah, because don't come suing us because you bought or sold something on anything we shared in this podcast. But if you'd like us to advise you on real estate matters, you know where to find us. And I guess we'll mention the bios really quickly. If you're new here, I have been with the House Einstein Brokerage since I founded it in 2013, and I've been in the real estate world for over 20 years. Prior to that, I worked in the financial world as an associate director of capital markets, as an equities analyst, primarily on the buy side of the investment world, less so on the sell side, but always in an analytical role. That was my background, and I brought a lot of those skills into real estate brokerage because I saw that there was an opportunity to do that. I felt like this industry is completely underserved by people that have that background, and yet people are making major investment decisions, probably the largest for most people that they make in their lives, and they're dealing with people that aren't really qualified to be advising them. So that was the basis of how I got into this industry. And the podcast, Hamish, we're up to 108. We're doing pretty good with it.
I think it was 4 without me. So yeah, we're 104, you and I.
Yeah, together. So maybe you should mention a little bit about your background and what you do at House Einstein.
Well, it's not nearly as impressive, but I'm Hamish. I've been here for 4 years now. I'm doing away with giving you the exact days as I used to. And I kind of have filled the role as right-hand man to the brokerage. So I'm a licensed agent, have been for 4 years now, and really help with showings, contract writing, deal flow, and also marketing. So prior to this position, I managed and ran a YouTube channel for an automotive company that specialized in kind of classic BMWs and retrofits and retro mods. And before then, I actually had a real estate internship at a mall and probably got to see how things were not to be done. And otherwise, I'm still a youngin', so before then was high school. There was some college mixed in there too.
Still, yeah, you could probably stop after the mall, Hamish. But that's cool. You are young, but you are very experienced when it comes to real estate transactions. And part of the reason for that is that Hamish reviews virtually every single deal we do. He goes through the file, if nothing else, as a transaction coordinator, verifying that the folders are correct. And you'd be surprised how often agents miss things in their transaction files. So he's involved in that component too, and he sees more deals every year than almost any other agent would see because of the volume that he's covering for all the agents that are part of our team. So even though he's young, I just want to throw a little hat tip for you, Hamish. Like, you're actually very experienced as far as real estate agents go.
Super. It's just an unusual kind of backstory. And on that note too, like, our agents are damn good on the file management and things too, and then the way that we have our team meetings and discuss our experiences, the experience just secondhand from hearing about you guys talk, I think counts for a lot too.
Yep. We have a weekly company meeting where we talk about what's happening with our deals to the extent that we can talk about it, because there could be a situation where we have buyers and sellers represented by other agents on the team, and we can't talk about things that would potentially compromise our clients. So that's one of the issues with team meetings, that larger brokerages are much more prone to problems, but our little boutique, our little Boulder-based boutique is less likely to have us representing both sides of the deal. All right, let me go through the docket on what we're talking about today. And our core topic is health impacts that buyers or owners face living next to busy roads and highways. And it came to our attention via a client. Of course, it's been in my radar, or on my radar, for many years, but I was quite surprised by the answer that AI gave us. And it was so impressive that I think it's worth discussing here on the podcast. So that's our closing table topic. We gave you the prompt already. We're now going to dive into the answer that AI gave us. And I'll also mention this is Gemini Deep Research, which is the AI that produced this research report. And we're only going to talk about the exec summary. It goes into a lot of detail, which we can't cover in this podcast. That's the depth of research. Realistically. And of course, none of that's verified, so I'll just mention that as well, but we'll come back to that. And then our next topic is Tales from the Trenches. That's a segment where we talk about actual experiences we've had in recent deals, and typically centered around a topic. So in this particular case, we're going to be talking quite a bit about trust and developing trust, and also knowing when to exit from a real estate relationship with an agent or with a client, if you're an agent listening to this. We're going to hit market conditions as we usually do. And if there's enough time, I want to break out the market by segment. We're going to do, say, under $2 million, and then that sort of mid-range in Boulder, the 2 to 3, and then the above $3 million market. And I think this is really important to be hyper-local and segment the market by price range. And often you don't get that granularity when you look at information provided by other agents. Our next segment is Sales of the Week. We have 5 properties teed up that we think represent interesting transactions from a location, price range, or deal point perspective. And we talk about those because it helps educate our clients as well as our podcast listeners on what's going on in the market. But one clear distinction, we do not talk about active listings on this podcast. The only place we talk about active listings is in our newsletter, the Fresh Listings newsletter, that the goal of which is to come out every other week, but it really depends on what's going on with clients and travel and other commitments. If it gets delayed, that's why. But we're now on a every other week goal to get that out. But keep in mind, it comes after other priorities, because we always prioritize our clients over new business development. And our clients
the link to sign up for that is in the description.
You can find the link at houseeinstein.com or in the description of what you're listening to now. It's pretty easy to find the sign up form. And
it's you have to sign up for us to be allowed to talk about active listings. Otherwise, I mean, all day long we would be chatting about it on here. Yeah,
it's an MLS rule. It's also a ethics rule for the NAR, and I've run afoul of it and got a phone call from the president of the MLS, and after a lengthy discussion, agreed that the only way I can talk about active listings is with a newsletter that is not available to the general public. You have to sign up, you have to opt in, and when you opt in, that gives me permission to talk about active listings. Okay, we have some shameless self-promotion. That's a very short segment where we talk about what one of our buyers or sellers may be searching for. And in this particular case, we're going to be talking about historic homes in Boulder, so stay tuned for that. And then we have a couple of items in the news to give you some hot takes on, including an update on the Dark Horse and another update on what's been happening with negotiations for water rights in the Colorado River, the upper basin versus lower basin, and how we just missed another deadline to reach agreement between the states. And then we've got our carve-outs. Hamish is going to be talking about solar again, which I love.
No, for the first time.
Oh, I think... Oh, okay. I've heard you talk about it in our other meetings, so let me just say
And it was on last week, but then I had to complain about the internet instead.
Yeah. And I'm going to be talking about something completely unrelated to housing, toy haulers and RVs, which has been a fascinating rabbit hole that I've found myself sucked into for the last few days. And that's our House Einstein podcast docket. This podcast is sponsored by House Einstein. We serve buyers and sellers in Colorado, focusing on Boulder, Denver, and several mountain resort towns, including Breckenridge and Winter Park. Our mission is simple: help you make a smarter real estate decision. You can learn more at houseeinstein.com or our YouTube channel, where you'll find videos on neighborhoods, specific listings, and much, much more. And I think I'm ready to get started. What do you think, Hamish?
Yeah, let's get after it. I'll say, we're going to get into the distance that you need to be from a high roadway and travel. But after reading this and seeing our client go down the rabbit hole, I had checked my distance, and thankfully I'm 3,500 feet from the busiest street in my area.
Mostly people think about the noise, right?
Yeah.
When they think about traffic noise because you are close to a busy roadway, but they don't think about the exhaust gases. They don't think about the rubber particles that are coming off the vehicles as tires wear. And if you've ever lived next to a busy road, you know that you get this black film on all sorts of things. Your vehicles, it looks like a dust that appears over time. And for many years, I've heard of these potential health effects, but I hadn't actually gone down the rabbit hole personally on doing the research, finding the research, articles, seeing if they're valid or not. It's just complex. And honestly, most clients know enough to know whether they are willing to tolerate being close to a busy road or not. My general rule has been, if there's a yellow line on the road, a traffic engineer made a determination that that's a busy roadway, and you want to be at least 3 houses in from a marketing perspective. Because at 3 houses in, most buyers' concerns start to fall off, in my personal experience. But on the basis of what AI just advised, that's completely wrong, and we should be looking at a much further distance from...
Say, like, AI is looking at the throughput of that street, not necessarily just the double yellow line, right?
Right.
This particular street saw, I think, 57,000 cars a day. Or something absurd.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a street. That's the parkway. And 100%, very different factor, right? We're talking about a roadway that gets 55 to 60,000 cars a day. And that becomes like a white noise in the background, although lately there have been late-night motorcycle adventures on US 36 that I've heard a lot of complaints about in South Boulder. So it's not just the atmospheric pollution. But let's read the AI answer, and then Hamish, let's kind of chew on that a little bit. And again, this is from Gemini. So the answer is: this comprehensive environmental health impact assessment evaluates the potential risks and lifestyle implications, and this is from the exec summary, of purchasing a residential property located approximately 200 feet east of State Highway 157, commonly known as Foothills Parkway, in Boulder, Colorado. This report synthesizes traffic engineering data, atmospheric dispersion modeling, epidemiological literature, and comparative air quality analysis to provide a detailed risk profile for prospective homeowners. The analysis confirms that the subject property lies within a distinct, quote, near road impact zone, driven by an annual average daily traffic, AADT volume of approximately 57,000 vehicles. While the city of Boulder generally maintains a reputation for superior environmental quality compared to major metro areas like LA or New York City, the microclimate created by this high-volume arterial corridor introduces a localized pollution increment that significantly alters the exposure profile for residents at this specific distance. And then it goes on to say, at 250 feet downwind, the residence is situated at the tail end of the, quote, fresh plume zone, where concentrations of ultrafine particles, that's UFP, nitrogen dioxide, and non-exhaust emissions, brake and tire wear, remain elevated above background levels before fully dispersing into the urban canopy. Quantitative health risk assessments reviewed for this specific distance interval indicate statistically significant increases in the relative risk of adverse health outcomes, including a 50% increase in the likelihood of childhood asthma exacerbation and a 13 to 42% increase in cardiovascular risks, such as ischemic stroke and heart failure, compared to residences situated beyond the 300-meter or 1,000-foot buffer. This report further contrasts the air quality dynamics with regional baselines in Denver, Seattle, LA, and New York City, revealing that while the mass of pollution in Boulder is lower, the toxicity of the near-road plume, dominated by diesel soot and heavy metals from braking, presents a specific hazard often masked by regional averages. Finally, an analysis of future infrastructure planning suggests that the Foothills Parkway corridor is slated for continued intensification, including intersection expansions and potential bus rapid transit integration, which may exacerbate noise and dust burdens in the coming decade. And so it isn't just, it basically compared it to 1,000 feet away. Hamish, so I don't know what you measured, but your helm needs to be 1,000 feet or more to be in the background. So you're covered there.
Well, true.
And all right, so first and foremost, this is this is AI, and AI. I have not personally verified any of the information that it provided. It has links that our client, gave us a copy of the research report. It has links in there that you can go and verify. It's probably right. I think this is one of those situations where it's better to be cautious and assume it's probably right, particularly if you're concerned with these health effects, and better to be 1,000 feet away anyway from a market resale perspective, from a noise pollution perspective. So I think our new baseline on the basis of this report, unless proven wrong, is 1,000 feet would probably be the minimum that we would recommend being close to US 36 or Foothills Parkway, and maybe even US 36 headed to Lyons. Like as you go out through and you're on that road to Lyons, that gets a lot of traffic too. Not quite as much as Foothills, and not quite as much as the diagonal. So the diagonal also would be included in that zone. But of course, it's up to our clients to make these decisions, right? So we have a due diligence checklist we give our clients when we are home shopping. And if they're particularly concerned with an area of due diligence like environmental hazards from roadways, then for sure we're going to tell them 1,000 feet is what we understand to be a healthy distance, but do your own research. We're not health experts. And I mean, prior to this, I had a client terminate on a home that was a few hundred feet away from transmission power lines. And I had spent, this is like more than a decade ago, and I spent hours looking through medical literature related to power lines. And I found one Lancet study that indicated within a certain distance from high transmission power lines, there was a very rare form of childhood cancer that increased by a slight margin, but it was statistically significant. And that was enough to cause our client to terminate on that house. So I sent her the report. She said, Osmond, I can't stomach the thought that my child's going to get this cancer. And every time I'm looking out the backyard window, I'm going to see those power lines in the distance and be thinking about childhood cancer. And if she gets it, I will never forgive myself. And I love this house to pieces, but the answer is no. We have to terminate. It's too close to high transmission power lines, not neighborhood distribution lines. Key distinction. And so we terminated. And ever since then, I've mentioned that study. But clearly, AI is capable of analyzing so much research at once within seconds that we can't ignore these tools when it comes to due diligence in real estate.
From a due diligence standpoint, I mean, it's incredibly helpful. And I think certain things like this where it's kind of, you can gut check it, not necessarily without... I'm going to be specific, like, you can't, not necessarily without checking the facts, but you can gut check it, right? Like, tire and brake wear pollution is a fact. And I mean, there's just anecdotal knowledge of so many people living next to highways having to wipe like a soot off of their car, and then you imagine kind of how that plays into the home, and with the nitrous dioxide or nitrogen dioxide, and regular exhaust is coupled onto that, and there would be a dispersion pattern. And you think about kind of how the world interacts. It's a really nice tool for due diligence. Martin Acres, I was curious, and
I'm
none
sure
of that is safe.
None of Martin Acres is safe. Unfortunately, none of that is safe. And I own investment property in Martin Acres. I think that knowledge is powerful. Would I make the same decisions today to buy it? I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I would say
it is also possible that environmental standards will improve over time, not get worse. We took asbestos out of brake linings because of this, right? Because it became clear we were creating airborne asbestos, and we took lead out of fuel. So it's possible that things will get better, but I mean, the EPA has decided to stop regulating environmental pollutants this week, or maybe that was last week, right? The carbon dioxide is no longer. And they announced they're no longer going to regulate it. Car makers are holding off on major design changes. They've decided to get rid of the auto stop button, which everyone is sort of annoyed by, that's had that forced on them.
Focusing on the real problems,
these are not real problems, right? But environmental concerns and health impacts are real problems. And I think the answer is you have to choose your own adventure, right? You have to make a decision for yourself on what risk factors you're willing to consider and what you're not. I mean, the air quality in Colorado is not particularly great. And where I live, which is in Boulder Canyon, up 4 Mile Canyon, we're high enough and up that I can see the air turn brown as it goes lower in elevation toward the city. And it's gross on some days, and I'm really grateful we're above the brown cloud. But if you're in the brown cloud, you have no idea on a day-to-day basis how gross that air is. And it gets trapped up against the foothills. So there are so many reasons to live in Colorado that are amazing reasons to be here, but the air quality on the Front Range is not one of them. And many of the cities that are next to the ocean typically have way better air quality than we get here. So that is just something that is a fact, and you have to make a decision for yourself when you're buying a home on all sorts of due diligence areas on what is an acceptable or unacceptable aspect of this house. And for example, lead-based paint. There shouldn't be lead paint in a home that was constructed after 1979. 1978 is our cutoff year. And if people are concerned with lead-based paint, the answer is look at newer homes. Because if you're looking at older homes, you're likely going to have some lead-based paint in the house, particularly historic homes. And on top of that, you're also likely going to find other problems like asbestos. And it's when these homes get worked on that this stuff gets atomized and airborne, especially with the prevalence of power tools. 50 years ago, there weren't power tools everywhere. And now, the first thing their contractor does is whip out a reciprocating saw and start cutting into it. And most of these contractors are not wearing proper PPE, and they're sure not thinking about dust in your ducting and in your children's cereal bowl as it blows around the kitchen. So this type of stuff is really important to think about and make a decision for yourself on your risk tolerance.
I was going to say, there's, I think, we've got kind of two layers to it, where it's, if the client is, and I think it's a courtesy mention to begin with, if it's within 1,000 feet of a busy roadway. There's the double yellow line, which I think is an immediate impact to your resale and time on market and things like that. And then there's kind of, maybe when that the impact to resale and time on market and things for a double yellow line is kind of baked into public perception of a home and its closeness to the road. I think there's time yet before the public catches on to 1,000 feet within a busy roadway being a defect. And so I don't necessarily see an overall economic downside to it, though the health impact should be understood or at least known about. And that very well may translate into an economic downside, right?
Oh, for sure. Over time, if it gets out, if the word gets out that the 1,000 feet is actually statistically significant for these forms of disease, exactly. I think that should have an impact on the market. But it's also, there are powerful forces that don't want you to know this information. And Zillow is, they've taken away their fire risk score They put it on there, and then they got so much pushback that they've now taken it away. But that doesn't change the fact that homes have a rating for fire risk and climate change risk, right? That's also something they were modeling through State Street, I believe. And
yeah, that's right.
And so they've taken that away. Why? Because it damages their business model. And the reality is this information also damages the value of a lot of houses. But I think our approach as brokers is that when we're sitting down with our new first-time buyers to ask them what they want, what are they looking for? Bedrooms, baths, price range, neighborhoods, schools, environmental concerns, I think it really should be up there. And that includes having that conversation about lead-based paint and asbestos, and now also distance from busy roadways. And we can point them to this research report. I think we need to do a little more vetting to make sure that this is real and not an AI hallucination. But the latest models have gotten way better. The hallucinations have dropped off pretty dramatically, but we still need to verify this type of information and know it's actually accurate. But for our client, they're convinced, and they've said this house is out. They're not going to consider it. And they're not, I don't think they're, I think have they said 1,000 feet or more? I don't think they've said that, but it's clearly going to impact their decision-making process going forward, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And, maybe they're happy at 300 feet. It's a sliding scale. It's a spectrum.
Right.
I do have to, it was news last year, and I think it was going to take effect either this year or next year, but the EPA and the governor of Colorado were going back and forth. Apparently Colorado kept failing its clean air guidelines, and so the EPA was going to impose a reformulated fuel, and it was going to raise gas prices by a bunch. I have a feeling that's not going to happen anymore given the recent rulings.
No, it's so on one level I understand, from a libertarian perspective, and again I'm an independent, but from a libertarian perspective I understand the frustration with government that imposes all sorts of burdens that don't have real benefit. But clean air, for the most part, has a dramatic benefit. And pretending that, for example, diesel soot particulates don't
totally
impact health, which is what just happened, is just astounding. And, my education background was biology and environmental science as a minor. And I love working with scientific clients, right? Engineers and scientists are my favorite clients to work with because we speak the same language. And I want them to do their due diligence. But at the same time, I feel like our job is on the buy side is to understand their needs and help them do more thorough due diligence. If we're representing a seller, we're not required to reveal any of this. This is not a defect to the home. It is an environmental concern for being close to a power line or a busy road. But Colorado is not going to say that listing agents have a duty to disclose this. We don't even have a duty to disclose if there's a dead body, that there was a homicide in the home. The Amityville killing is not Amityville horror is not a
wouldn't
or even the Ramsey murder. Which, God, can you imagine accidentally buying the Ramsey house? What a nightmare that would be to you. And also, your agent, I think, should give you your commission back, because that is insane that they didn't tell you were buying the Ramsey house and you bought it by mistake. By the way, the fact that you have to sign a disclosure and an agreement to not take photographs in the home should be the giveaway, right, before the showing that you're buying a home that is notorious.
I feel like that one got enough publicity. If you know, right? It kind of would be public info. But that said, I don't actually know which house is the Ramsey house here or anything. And honestly, I don't follow the murder podcasts and that whole world too much or too closely, so I'm not knowing.
It's just so dark,
Yeah.
I think the beauty industry for children is gross. Personally, I find it really. I mean, I don't often. We've had clients whose children are models, and I keep my mouth shut because it's not my business to opine about everything. But boy, internally, I just feel like a stomach churn. I just don't like children being.
Yeah.
Their images being sold from selling anything. And I know there's legitimate modeling, of course, but beauty pageants for 6-year-olds, what are you people doing, right? And especially now, what's happening with the Epstein case and all the rest is just Just a reminder how gross that is. Okay, let's move on because I can't stay on this topic.
Before we spiral. Yeah.
Before we spiral even more into the darkness. We were just talking about, being close to a busy roadway and how that's important due diligence. But now let's talk about our tales from the trenches. Let's move on to our next segment. Perfect. And it's sort of interesting how as you get older and more experienced in this profession, some things become really, really obvious. And I've talked about this particular topic area for many years, and yet it still comes up. And the way that it has moved in my awareness as a priority has gone from relatively low to almost the top and most important thing in developing a relationship with a client. And that's around the concept of trust. And if you have trust in the transaction between your agent and yourself, between your agent and the other agent, and between the other agent and the seller, and between the seller and the buyer, there's a network of higher trust. Yeah. The deal goes smoothly. You get past obstacles that come up in the transaction. People feel more confident, they feel better, and the deals just typically sell for more money too. I can't prove that, but I'm pretty sure that exists. And if there is distrust in the transaction, if the seller has tried to hide something, if the buyer has behaved in disingenuous ways, it makes every aspect of the deal more challenging. And if the agent and their client don't have trust with each other, in particular, the client doesn't believe anything the agent is telling them. And so now they're behaving in ways that signal distrust. So it's a spiral that can work really to the client's favor if there's a high degree of trust, and it can work really to your client's disfavor if there's a low degree of trust. You could miss out on a great house that otherwise, because of the way the agents behaved, created distrust in the transaction. So, I think that one of the ways we build trust, and Hamish, you've seen this so many times, is by having honesty at our showings, right? Like when we represent the buyer and we're going to look at a house, we're not pushing them into the house at all. And usually what we're doing is pointing out the issues with this house and pointing out things that maybe they aren't thinking about. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, look, you've indicated to me that at some point you're planning to have a family. Currently you have one child. You're thinking about a second one, and you're going to be out of room.
Bedroom, yeah.
Yeah, you've got two, you're going to be out of room in 3 to 5 years. And you got to remember that as your kid gets older, they're going to start accumulating stuff too. And they may get involved in a sport that requires equipment, which is also going to take up space. So even though this is technically not our job, we think of advising as part of our role in the transaction, and at least bring it to their awareness that you're buying. It's a cool house, but it's got a problem. The garage is another example. Like we've had clients say to us, boy, that house is okay. I think maybe I could live without a garage. And that's when I pause and I say, maybe you could live without a garage, but I can tell you that the vast majority of my buyers are not living without a garage. And if you buy this house, at some point, hopefully you'll call me to sell it. And that's when we're going to have this conversation where I tell you it's going to sell for less money and it's going to take a lot longer to attract a buyer because of this deficit. And you
Much
can,
like
as
the
long
double
as you,
yellow.
just like the double, as long as you know going in, then it works okay for me ethically. But it's so funny. So here's the tale. And this is a closing that we're having. Hang on, let me make sure I get the story right. Okay, so this is a closing that's happening this week, and it's super interesting because whenever there are family members involved in a transaction, we would like to know as early as possible because it's really important to build trust in that relationship with the other decision makers. Mm-hmm. Where things go sideways is when we start working with adult children and then they tell us right before writing the offer that the money is coming from mommy and daddy. And now you have to jump into establishing a working relationship with mommy and daddy. And mommy and daddy have not seen the 30 other houses that you've been through looking. They haven't met you.
Yeah.
You haven't looked at past closings and negotiated discounts. They don't know who you are. You're just some agent that their daughter or son or cousin or whatever the family member relationship is found. And they have no idea if you're honest or ethical or if you're a charlatan. And they assume you're a charlatan. And that's actually that's actually fair because there's a lot of shady agents in the industry, and you're better off assuming they're shady until proven otherwise. But there's not enough time to prove otherwise. And so the deal gets really messy. And recently in this particular situation, and I actually really love working with this family. Like they're fun and interesting, and they ask really good questions. But it's one of those situations where the parents are remote and they're helping in the transaction. And when we put it under contract, there were lots of detailed questions. We had a video meeting with the family, and the father, who's, I'm guessing he's in his 70s, he could be in his late 60s, I don't really know, was asking lots of questions. And at one point I finally one of the questions was, are you sure we have enough time to get this inspection done? This timeline looks really tight. And it's under contract at this point, right? We've already gotten it under contract. And I had to say, look, the issue we're having right now is that let's just face it, it's a trust issue. Like, you basically just don't trust me. And I've been writing this, and that's okay, but
to be fair, you guys have been tit for tat, right? Like, I didn't just say this, like, out of the blue. These two have kind of a cheeky relationship, yeah.
I recommended this timeline because I've written this contract hundreds, thousands of times, and I know we can get it done. It's aggressive. We had to be aggressive to get the deal. There were competing offers. If we were not aggressive, we may not have gotten the deal. I know that we weren't the highest offer, and one of the reasons we were successful is because we have a very tight timeline in every aspect of the transaction. And you're going to have to trust that if something comes up that we can't solve within that timeline, the other party is going to behave reasonably. But it has to be something reasonable. And you have to behave in a reasonable way, and they will likely behave in a reasonable way too. And the most you have at risk is your earnest money, which is significant, but we don't blow earnest money. More than likely, what you're going to lose if we terminate the deal, let's say you find something on inspection and we can't solve it, and the seller says, take a hike, we have another buyer, so take it or leave it. You leave it, and you get your earnest money back, but you lose your inspection money.
Cost of inspection, yeah.
Your due diligence costs are what you eat, not really your earnest money at risk. Technically, your earnest money is at risk. But if you behave to the contract terms and you terminate in a defined exit, you're not losing earnest money. Anyway, I had to explain all of that, but I had to frame it as, look, this is really a trust issue. It's not a house issue, and it definitely is not a contract issue. It's just because things are different in your state, and you have no relationship with me. And so let's work on, I don't mean to be pushy with, like, I've been doing this 20 years, right? Because when people hear that, they can react in one of two ways. Either they're like, okay, let me relax. Let's bring the energy level down. I could trust somebody that's been doing this for 20 years. Or they get a little annoyed at you for whipping out your experience, right? Mm-hmm. Like, people sometimes bristle when you show them the years you've been doing it. And I remember being young and thinking I knew everything. And when somebody said to me, I've been doing this 20 years, I'd be like, what are you selling me, right? I'd be a little suspicious. Yeah. So there's always this question. Yeah. Are you going to pull out the age card or not? But it was really funny because it actually brought the energy level down. And I got really the most touching phone call from him. And it was really interesting because it involved a commission.
When was this for my mental?
This is like 3 or 4 days ago.
Okay.
This is right after we got through inspection.
Gotcha.
And he called me to thank me for how I've been working in his family's interests. And what's interesting is that so we typically work for 2.8. That's my commission, right? I'm not discounting that. I know a lot of agents will do it for 2.5, but you get what you pay for. And I've done it for 2.8 my entire career. Yeah. And the seller didn't want to pay the 2.8. They wanted to pay 2.5, and the difference is a couple $1,000. And I had to tell my buyer that you're going to be liable for a couple $1,000 in commission to me. It'll show up on the settlement statement. Do you want to move forward with this transaction? Because I'm not discounting my services. I'm not going to work harder for less, right? Like this is, and you knew this going in, right? In the buyer agency, this was a possibility.
Before
he said, absolutely. Yeah. I already agreed to do the 2.8, and now thank you for telling me the 0.3% difference. And I also said to him, and I just so you know, I'm going to work even harder to make sure that you see the value of that 0.3%. And that's what he mentioned in that phone call. He said, you absolutely have delivered that value, and I deeply appreciate it. And not just in the negotiated discount and the negotiated credit, but in the due diligence perspective, like helping them do their due diligence and fully understand the issues that came up. And there were issues that came up that were a little bit surprising. So I don't know. I got to tell you, I don't really care. Like, the dollars that show up when the deal closes do not make me feel better.
They keep the lights on, but the mission is serving these clients, right?
They pay the insane property taxes our office is now due. They pay for your salary. They pay all the insurance. They pay to keep the lights on. But
yeah,
the thank you from him was so touching. And I think I had him on speaker, and Leah was next to me. We were in the car, and I hung up, and I was like, that just felt so good. And I so appreciate that phone call. It meant so much to me to have this very professional, experienced human in a different field call me to thank me for taking care of his family and mention that that I've earned that 0.3%, which felt really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the first call that you had with these clients, I was on an intro. I think I was just in my car before I was about to head out for a shoot. But this guy comes off pretty naturally suspicious and kind of asking good questions and stuff the whole time. But there was a moment where Osman answered something or said something and he giggled. And this is like a 7-year-old, like, hard ass, right? And if he giggled, I was like, "Oh, Oz, you're good. Like, like, don't have to worry." And that was kind of the moment of like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have a good working relationship.
Yeah. And so if you're an agent listening to this, I think there's a lot of ways you can engender trust, and you absolutely should be focused on this as part of your service. So many agents are just focused on leads. How do I get more leads? But they don't really focus on how do you be a better agent. And building trust should be at the very top of your list of priorities. And one of the best ways to do that is honesty at the showings, practical advice on negotiation, whether you're representing buyers or sellers. You should be very judicious and experienced at negotiation and offer them pathways and likely results from taking certain pathways based on your own personal experience in handling negotiations, as well as your training in negotiations. If you don't have training in negotiation, you should be making that a top priority, because there's tons of coursework you could take that improve your negotiation skills.
I was going to say, eat that up. Like, read about negotiations, different types of negotiations, because every scenario is going to be different. One strategy isn't going to work.
I mean, you should take the Harvard Business School course on negotiation, or the Realtor equivalent, which gets you the Certified Negotiation Expert credential, which, I mean, I have. I don't market that credential,
yeah.
but I have. I took it a long time ago. But there's newer stuff that is actually really good, that takes it to the next level when it comes to negotiations. Like that, the Harvard course is a good baseline, but then there's very specific Realtor training that you can find online that I recently have taken some, and I'm like, that's actually really good advice on how to negotiate better for your clients and also for yourself as an agent. But the other thing you can really think about is, don't push your clients into houses. Like, you're showing a house, do not push them in. Like, sometimes people need a little bit of encouragement, and that's different. And maybe that encouragement comes with the backing of the data, right? Like, if they say, we're on the fence about this house, we think it might be overpriced. And I said, what if I could show you it's not overpriced? Like, I don't think it is, but I don't know for sure. And what I would do is look at the data. So why don't we schedule a video call? We'll go to the war room. We'll pull up the comps. We'll go through them together. And then you can ask yourself, we'll know, is this home overpriced or not if there's an adequate comp set? That's not me telling you it's priced right. That's the data and the conclusion you might reach. Or maybe we'll conclude that it's not, it's overpriced. And then we can ask ourselves, all right, what is fair value? Like, and can we provide these comps in the negotiation? Exactly. And when it's a stale listing, that's what we usually do, is provide the sold comps that justify the price point we're trying to negotiate to. We might cherry pick that a little bit because we are in the business of advocating for our client. We're not neutral. We represent the buyer. That's one of the core functions of what we should be doing, is advocating for a better deal. So don't push your clients into houses. Use the data. Advocate for a better deal. If you're representing a seller, I think it's important to be honest about the valuation of the house and the selling challenges that might be ahead and the work that the home needs to prepare it properly. Is that Mr. Balls back there taking something out?
Dropped a mount for the gimbal.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Nope.
No, I lost it slightly. Keep talking, you'll bring it back.
All right. Well, so there's stuff you can do on the buy side and the sell side. But one of the most important things, and I want to mention this because it was a lesson for us, is that we maintain a network of referrals to our contractors to help prepare homes for sale, and after closing to help improve homes for occupation, right, from moving in. And one of those relationships is with an architect. We have many in our Rolodex, but we recently have had to fire one. And it's unfortunate because this is an architect. So the point of this is that
the young guy, without naming them,
we're not mentioning any names. Let me get there. Yeah. We're not mentioning any names. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Rolodex can change over time, and should change if people change their business practices. And this particular architect is super knowledgeable, but arrogant. And that arrogance, that bedside manner that turns people off, is like the third time that I've gotten that feedback. And even though he knows his stuff, that arrogance and that sort of entitlement of his knowledge is just such an off-turning experience for our clients that we can't send him business anymore. I just can't hear this feedback again, that we are really disappointed with that experience with that particular architect. I mean, great that he came out for free and spent half an hour with us looking at this house, but he's
a reflection on us, right?
I mean, you could beep this out, but he's an asshole. And so this asshole rule or no asshole rule is violated unless we fire him, and we took him out. So it's important. We have a no asshole rule at House Einstein.
For the sake of my bleeping, can we just say a-hole?
Yeah. Okay. Going forward, we'll use that word. We have a rule as a business practice. It doesn't matter how much money you bring into the brokerage as an agent. That's not the selection criteria for you to join our team, period. Because it has such an impact on everyone around us. And that also applies to clients. And we've had to fire clients who violate this rule. And it's something that you can only do once you're experienced and established in this industry. It's very difficult if you're new to the business and desperate for real estate deals. You're willing to work with anybody. But when you get older, you realize life is too short. And people that behave in inappropriate, disrespectful ways to other people or have an arrogance problem there's alternatives. You don't have to work with somebody like that. And the money doesn't make it worthwhile. So anyway, it's not just about the service side of it. It's also about the referral network. And it's also knowing when to fire a client when they are behaving in this manner. And that comes from experience. And don't forget the due diligence piece on the buy side and helping the seller prepare for due diligence on the sell side. So those are all the pieces around trust. And it's that tale from the trench for this closing this week with our client who, that was challenging, but we got past the trust issue by calling it out, by naming it, because that really was the issue. And as soon as we got past that, the whole transaction started going much smoother.
Yeah. Kind of back on when you were saying, if you're a new agent and you were giving advice to not pushing your clients into a home, as we're about to see, I think with market conditions, there is inventory out there, and fostering a good relationship with your clients will pay back dividends in being able to sleep at night as well as referrals in theory. So really just don't push them into a house. That's I know a few people that are on the hustle mindset, and that is kind of their mindset, is just to get people into houses, and it's gross at the end of the day. And it won't pay out in the long run. Now, real quick before we move on, we did a while ago, I think we were talking at the Neighbors podcast, where you encourage these buyers to go talk to the neighbors, and they found out that the house did in fact have flood damage, and then they didn't trust you as the agent. There's exceptions, but
I think that was largely because it was a young married couple where they were engaged. And they felt like we were favoring one of the two. Like they felt like we were favoring the husband in communication. And the lesson from that was not that there was a trust issue, but it was trust in us because of how we were communicating. And what I learned from that is that especially when it's a younger couple that are the decision makers, it's important to have a conversation around how would you like communication to go forward. Yeah. And some couples will do this themselves, right? They will, like, if you call one of them, they'll be like, hold on, let's call the other, let's get them on a conference call, let's all talk together. That tells you your answer right away. But you as an agent should be sensitive to this, and you should check in and say, how would you like our communications to go? Older couples, by the way, almost universally will adopt a divide and conquer strategy to their lives. One will handle one area of life, one will handle the other area of life. And so one becomes the primary point and one becomes the secondary point. And you rely on the primary point to know when to bring on the secondary point. The secondary person, the decision maker, doesn't need to be there for every meeting. In fact, doesn't want to be there for every meeting. And they have other things to do, right? Yeah. So the older you get in a relationship, the more you value divide and conquer versus I have to be in every single. We have to meet together for everything.
That's trust on its own too, right? Trust of the other party to handle and divide and conquer. Yeah,
to work. It's totally a trust issue.
It's all trust.
So trust is so essential to real estate, and most people overlook it. All right, so let's go into the analysis. The first tranche is 0 to $500,000. Single-family houses in Boulder County, and Boulder County includes Lafayette, includes Longmont, includes a lot of the little mountain towns like Nederland. and Ward. It also includes Lyons. All of that, plus the unincorporated areas within the county, are all part of Boulder County. And of course, the city of Boulder is in Boulder County. So under $500,000, when we look at all active inventory, so that's coming soon, active, under contract.
Unattached?
Nope, just detached. Yep.
Okay.
All inventory, whether or not it's under contract. Okay, it just hasn't sold. How many homes are available? There are 59 available, and of those 59, there are 29 that are under contract. So 29 out of 59 is 38%.
I think that comes out to 49.
49%.
Yeah, 49%.
Yeah. So roughly half. And when you look at what's sold in the last year, you get 309 options. Just keep in mind that a lot of those properties are not actual single-family houses. They may include double-wide and single-wide trailers without foundations. They may include weird cabins in the mountains that were never permitted. So it's really hard to find something that is truly a lovely single-family house under $500,000. You may get some really tiny houses that are 2-bedroom, 1-baths that are historic. Those are in that data set too. But under $500,000 is a very challenging price point. And as you can see, if it happens to exist, about half of them are...
At this price point, you're getting some interesting stuff. Yeah, you're not just getting...
Yeah. You're
getting classic
very
home.
Quirky and interesting stuff. And one of the funny things is people think we only work with high-end clients. And of course, we prefer to work with higher-end clients, but we also work with affordable housing buyers, and we cover all price ranges. Our criteria as a brokerage is, do you value the advice and services we give? Are you a reasonable person that is actually in the market to buy or sell? I think we could probably work together, right? Are you in our footprint? If you're not in our footprint, we can probably find you another agent that we think is pretty good outside of our footprint. All right, so let's do 500,000 to $1 million. This is really 500,001, Hamish. Yeah. And when you look at the total inventory, there are 334. And, hold on. Yep, that included pending. And then when you look at, of those 334, how many are under contract? 128. So 128 over 334.
That's the 38% one, I think.
That's 38%.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
38.
so a little more than a third of the market. And keep in mind that most economists will tell you 5 to 6 months of inventory is about right. So that's below 20% is a healthy, balanced market. So under $1 million in Boulder is still very much a seller's market. And now let's move on to the next tranche, $1,000,001. And let's do a larger tranche this time, because people that can afford $1 million, not necessarily that they're going to go to 2, but as you move up in price range, the tranches get wider. So for purposes of this analysis, let's just do $1 million to 2, $1,001 to 2. If you want to recreate this analysis in real time on your, MLS.
I'd say that data shifts so quickly, it'd be unlikely we even get the same results.
Oh yeah.
Like when we had our intern, we did it within the same day, him and I, and we both got different answers.
Yeah, the data changes constantly. This is real-time data that is being pulled from the MLS on Wednesday, February 18th at around noon. Okay, so $1 million to 2, you are looking at total inventory of 220 houses, and of those 220, you have 73 under contract.
This is a lot better than the number we got before.
73 out of 220.
35%.
Okay, 35%.
Still rounding. Yep.
And when you look at sold in the last year, 826 houses. Okay, and now let's do
price point. Yeah.
Let's call it 2 to 3. $2,001 to 3. And we're looking at all inventory. There are 95 houses on the market. And of the 95, 20 are under contract. So 20 over 95. We're now approaching a balanced market.
And
we're
21%.
21%. We're at 5 months of inventory. So getting better. And now let's look at that $3 million and up. And of course, this includes some really high-end houses. And if you're really shopping,
that's
for
some very
like
aspirational prices.
And make-believe pricing. I keep putting $30 million in. The way the dollar is declining maybe someday. Okay, $3 million and $1 and up, Boulder County. How much inventory do we currently have? I feel like saying, the Bob Barker survey says thing, which is way before your time, Hamish. Survey says 118 inventory homes on the market, 118 available. And of the 118, what percentage is under contract?
Percentage? Couldn't say. 10 under contract is my guess.
16. 16 out of 118. What's our number?
13.5%. Oh, actually,
13.
we're rounding up. So
call that 14%. So you're very much a buyer's market in $3 million and up, but below $3 million, it is very much still a seller's market. So, and as you move up in price, it becomes more and more balanced. But that $3 million, that point somewhere around the $3 million mark, the market radically shifts. And if you're selling, you really need to look at everything that's like within, I would say, 10 to 20% of your home as you move up in price to see how competitive you are. Because we're seeing some listings that make no sense, complete make-believe pricing. And if you're in a category by yourself, like some of these listings might be, you could argue that, but most of these are not in a category by themselves. They have comparable sales. And if they don't have a comparable sale, you still need some sort of way to reverse into this price point, right? Like, how did we get to $14 million? Like, what's the rarity of a perch like this? What's the cost, the time, what are the materials, and then the value of the design itself, right? So the cost to build it yourself, and maybe the design and the elements that are particularly unique. Can you get your head around it? Can you come up with a back of the envelope for spending that much money? Or are you just so wealthy you don't care and you just got to have it, which exists too. And for sure, you can call us if you're those people. We will still help you.
Absolutely give us a call.
but our people are mostly those that want to see the data. Show me how we got to this number. So above 3 million, how many houses sold last year? 75.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah, that's not bad, actually. 75 sales in Boulder County above 3 million last year. Okay. Okie dokie. I think that's a good analysis. That covers a couple of different price tranches. As Hamish indicated, we would do a different price tranche if we were just doing the city of Boulder, where it's pretty clear where those tranches lie. And even more important than making up the tranches is if you're a buyer or seller, you have to do the analysis that's specific to your unique situation. Like, it's interesting to slice up the market and think about it as an armchair analyst. But if you're buying or selling, you need actionable information that's relevant to you, not a bunch of made up data. Well, it's not made up, not a bunch of generic data that isn't actually specific to the neighborhoods you want, the type of house you want, the age of the home, the design, the bedrooms, the baths, the garage, the square footage, all of that. Are you west of Broadway, east of Broadway? There's so many different ways to slice it, and you're the one that decides how to slice it. And that data, if we give you the sold homes that sold in the last 12 months that match your very unique and specific criteria, that is such intelligence on your future decision on whether to buy, which home to target, and how much to pay.
How fun would it be, your buyer's agent's like, okay, so you're ready to put in this offer? Well, I looked at prices $1 million above what you're putting in your offer, and here's what the market's doing. It's completely off base. Yeah.
Okay.
Sales of the week for real this time.
Let's now really get into sales of the week. And we need to keep an eye on the time, Hamish, but I think we're doing okay.
I think okay, yeah.
I may not be able to talk about toy haulers as long as I'd like to talk about toy haulers.
And me solar, unfortunately.
This is why we leave the carve-outs for the end, because it's like the juicy stuff that, I mean, it's all juicy, but it's sort of we know they're fun conversations. So, well, not always fun, but they're meaningful. Yeah. All right. Our first sale of the week is 810 College Avenue. And this home was on the market, available for a single day. And likely what happened is that people saw the home during the coming soon period, because it was first listed as a coming soon on January 13th. There was 3 full days in that coming soon period where you may have gotten a sneak peek. I'm not saying that happened, but I am saying that it does happen. And it went under contract the very day it effectively was listed. But with that said, yeah, the status changed 3 days later, but it was changed to go under contract the same day it hit, and it sold for full list. And the brokerages were not the same, so this is one of those little poke in the eyes for the Compass make-believe private network. It was a Compass buy-side agent and a Mile High Modern listing agent who's also an architect. And I wonder if she designed this house, because this is in the period of where she, and I think she still does do architecture and design. And this is a really cool house. So the location is right around the corner from one of our favorite clients. It's directly south of Columbia Cemetery. And when you go west of 9th Street, things really quiet down. You don't get a lot of students compared to east of 9th Street. And this particular house is compelling. I'm not going to argue from a design perspective. It's attractive. It's a little simplistic. I think the listing agent called it kind of Scandinavian inspired or something like that. And yeah, okay. Sure. But it's turnkey. It looks like everything is done to a very high standard. It's only 13 years old. And, the photography does a good job of showing the minimalism of its design. And the color palette is perfect. Almost perfect. I would say some of this gray, this home flipper gray needs to go. The colors today are a little bit warmer than this color palette. But that's like the only critique I think I have of the home itself. Like it's a great design.
It's like modern world practical, right? Like we talk about older homes, being kind of built for people who had less things, and there's a bit of a reversion to that as things get more modern. But I bet you it's practical. It is fairly simple of a design, right?
I mean, they're just two primary boxes, and then the garage ADU has a flat roof, which introduces some additional due diligence. The siding, I can't tell, it is not consistently spaced siding, so that tells me it's not likely your everyday hardy board.
Choice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a design choice. It's something that is subtle, that hints at sophistication, even though it's simple on the outside. But the location is stellar, right? I think it's a good spot. It's a super interesting house. And it sold for full list, which I wonder if they did the comp analysis for $3.5 million, like all the other options you might have had. I know my buyers would want to see a lot of houses, plus or minus $500,000 to pay full list at 3.5. And I'll never forget doing this analysis for a client because we were getting ready to offer full list. And I said, hold on a second, let me see what else is sold at full list, plus or minus $200,000, and it was a $3 million house. This was like 12 years ago. And the answer was, in the last 5 years, nobody has paid full list for a home that was listed at this price point. So it's really hard to justify telling you to pay full list. And he's like, great, okay, let's negotiate. So we offered low, and the listing agent never told me there was a competing offer, and we lost it because we went low. Yeah, that's another story for the trenches. But maybe it was worth full list. I never saw the house, so I can't even tell you. But it's rare, and I hope that the agent did their analysis to show you that very few homes that are at this price point go for full list. But if it's going right away, it likely will. So as a buyer, you're kind of faced with a dilemma, right? You can go ahead and offer full list or more because it's day one of the listing, and you're scared to lose it. Or you can roll the die and see if it's available in 5 to 7 days. And if it hasn't gone under contract in 7 days, you have your answer. And you can now negotiate. And you should look at the average negotiated discounts of homes like it to come up with what feels like fair value. I mean, you're over $1,000 a square foot. That's a very significant threshold to think about. And then the ADU itself also is a rarity. So how well designed and executed is the ADU? Who are the builders and the architect involved? And how has the home been maintained during its 13 years of existence? And what's the value of your time, right, in searching? Like one of the other analysis you could do is look for just homes west of 9th Street, Rose Hill neighborhood, and see how many other homes like this sold in the last 10 years. And my guess is there's going to be less than 5. And if you have to have Rose Hill and you could afford it, the right answer might be full list.
Yeah.
Get the house.
It comes down to how bad do you want this particular house, right? Like, if you need it, gots to have it, then that affects your offer strategy.
But nobody likes to hear that, right? No one here wants to hear how desperate are you, and that affects your price. What they prefer to hear is what is the rarity or the scarcity of this type of home that we find so appealing, and this location. Like if they've decided Rose Hill is their spot, they need to be directly south of the cemetery for whatever reason, right? This is their spot. Then you can do an analysis that's specific to those factors, and then you can tell them that the replacement, right? Because it's the fear of having another alternative, the Batman, right? There's no other option like it. Well, then you can make a decision. You could do an escalation clause, right? Yeah. You could offer to pay list with an escalation and not get into a bidding war. That's one option too. All sorts of options exist, but you have to make an intelligent decision, you have to have the data.
Yeah.
Anything you change about the house, Hamish?
The box design. I think it's gorgeous, right? Like fantastic finishes. It's very stylish. It's very chic, but it is just not a very compelling exterior to me at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just screams practical.
Is that the seller was the listing agent, so I didn't know that this was her personal home. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you she designed it then.
Yeah, she almost certainly designed it, and I think it's a nice design. So don't take it personally. Selling agent, listing agent.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Scandinavian design isn't for everybody. I think it's pretty cool, but
no hard feelings in this slide.
I mean, my personal taste is more traditional, right? I think that just there's a warmth and kind of a resonance from historic homes that look historic on the outside and have been remodeled on the inside. That is my personal flavor, but everyone has their own taste when it comes to homes. But they expect us to at least have a hot take on it, Hamish, and it's okay that you hate it.
And that's, yeah. Let's go with that. Okay. This one I do really like, though. This next one.
The next one? All right. Let's just don't expect the listing agent to be nice to you if she hears how much you hate her designs.
I know.
All right.
Just shot my professional career in the foot.
All right. 1193 Old Tail Road is our next one. So Old Tail is a really interesting location. I think it's one of the most preferred locations in Boulder. You're on the east side of the city, on the east side of the golf course. It feels rural, but you can be in the city itself in minutes on a bicycle or in a car. You get a little bit away from the hustle and bustle of stuff happening in the city of Boulder. And you often have very large lots, like this is over an acre. Some of these back right to the creek or to the open space, or maybe even to the golf course. And that is it's a very unique location because of that feel. And this particular house flew off the market. So they listed it at 2.45. We've been looking in this location because there's another listing that is just under 3 that we've been paying a lot of attention to. We've seen it a few times, but we can't get our client to budge on the factors that don't work for them. In particular, they don't want to pay the recent tax increase that they got nailed with in Rose Hill, coincidentally, does not make them want to buy another higher end home because they feel like they're not getting anything for the services that they're paying for in our taxes. But 1193 Old Tail, listed at 2.45, sold for 3. So sold for $550,000 over list, which is phenomenal. You don't see that every day. I pretty clearly listed below
market
value. Yeah, and it sold for cash too, which cash is pretty common at this price point. It's not necessarily an advantage. People expect homes to sell for cash. I think it has some really iconic mid-century design elements that make it very appealing. It was built in 1959, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 3,400 square feet, 1+ acre rural lot in one of the most desirable parts of town on Old Tail. I would not want to mow this lawn or take care of the garden, but likely you have people for that. Yeah. And the inside...
This is my exterior.
You like this
my
exterior.
type of design. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love the vaulted ceilings, the woodwork. Mm-hmm. I'm not crazy about the steps into the lower level. Like, for a period of design, this type of steppage from one level to another to kind of create different parts of the home was very popular. And today, what we're seeing is a lot of people that are boomers don't want any steps, right? That's a fall risk, and mobility challenges make homes like this a little bit problematic. But often that lowered level can be raised. And in this home, you can see, one of the classic mid-century design elements, and that's the beams continue through the glass. And the if you look at the photo 19. Which is the living room. You can see all that glass and those beams that go right through. The wood on the outside looks like it needs some love, but it's framing the flat irons, and it's framing the open space, the golf course. It just feels so nice. There's some things that probably could use a little update. The kitchen is a little bit dated, right? Like that countertop. You're spending $3 million on a house, and you don't even get solid surface countertops. But
the range,
I bet you those are
like,
the range is like ridiculous, right? Like we have rentals with better ranges than that.
I think all of them.
Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff, but that's cheap, right? That's small potatoes to get the right house. The window treatments are horrible. The fireplace is interesting. I like that they have a bunch of candles in the photos in the primary. Yeah. The bathrooms are just ridiculous. They're so dated.
It's time capsule. Yeah.
But man, the bones of this house are so cool. So I'm going to say this was a strong buy, even at $3 million. I think that this one was worth the premium because you could fix everything wrong with it. You can't fix flood zone.
I was going to say this one's in the flood zone. Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is where you're bringing up a really interesting point, and that is what are the trade-offs for being in the flood zone? And I think being on Old Tail is an acceptable trade-off that backs to the golf course for being in the flood zone. Right. If you're buying a home that has no perceptible or obvious trade-offs that you're gaining for the flood zone, you should not buy that house, in my opinion, unless you're getting an incredible deal on it, because homes that are in the 100-year flood, maybe even the 500, but definitely 100-year flood or worse, come with a lot of serious trade-offs, not just like flood insurance, but also limitations on development rights. And this is not development rights as a developer building like a giant building. This is you want to do an addition in the future. This house itself is reasonable square footage, 3,400. Everything's one level. I mean, I think it's a great house. It totally makes sense why it sold for $3 million, and strong buy to the buyers. Any additional thoughts, Hamish?
Without going too long on this one, I wonder if our old listing in 2022 was a consideration when they were looking at comps or pricing. 4170 Pinion. That one was like kind of almost a poster child, mid-century modern, but this being a ranch and having similar kind of design features, I wonder if there was some kind of overlap with that.
Possible. They might have. Yeah. I mean, good point. So the more unique the house, the more likely you have to look for older comps. And then you have to do market adjustments based on how the market has changed over time. Because if you have something that's really quite unique, you're not likely to find a comp in the last 6 months.
No. And the it's a whole different beast, yeah.
All right, let's talk about our next sale of the week, 5249 Quail Hollow Court. And this is a house that was built in the early 90s in Gun Barrel and Country Club Estates. And it's a pretty typical house, 4,300 square feet, 3-bedroom, 3-bath with a 3-car attached garage on a 16,000 square foot lot. So decent sized lot. And looking at the photos, you can see they've done some things to improve its aesthetics on the outside. It has a much more modern paint scheme with black or dark gray trim and white walls and black fixtures. Like this is a look that has now been going for at least 7 years, but still is appealing for most people. The interior is not a pure whiteout. It has a very, this slightly warm tone to the walls, and the ceilings are not painted the same as the walls. I would say that this look is actually very current. The fixtures, maybe some of them are cool. The kitchen is not. Decent. They're decent, but the kitchen's not like done yesterday. Like that style of granite was popular 20 years ago. So I'm going to say the kitchen is at least 20 years old, and it's got Amazon door pulls on the cabinetry.
Oh man,
I know because I bought them. Right, I know what these things are. So I think the seller spruced this up in a way that makes sense. That like they didn't go over the top, right? They didn't replace the countertops in the bathrooms or the kitchen, but they painted it and they staged it. And they may have done some of the fixtures. They painted the outside. I like that the railings are modern, right? Like so, this is something that really distinguishes older homes that have been spruced up is when they redo the railings, so it's not the old-fashioned wood spindles.
There is. Yeah, this is kind of almost like a if it ain't broke. Like the kitchen that design, I don't think, it's kind of outdated as far as not the latest and greatest, but it's also fairly timeless. Like, it still just works. The primary bathroom, I know you said it was pretty dated. I don't hate that kind of tile. I think where the tile's segmented like that, for a countertop, it adds to the dated look of it. But I agree. I think they did meaningful prep for this one and didn't go overboard.
Yep. And it's not a flip, as far as we know. It looks like the owners acquired the house in 2012. And so, unless the tax assessor is really slow, this doesn't look like a flip. All right, so here's what's surprising about the deal. So it was listed at 1.65, and they got a bidding war because it sold for 1.8, 150,000 over list, cash deal, reasonable closing timeline, 28 days to sale. So reasonably aggressive, and 150,000 over list. I'm sure the sellers are thrilled. I don't know if the listing agent intentionally underpriced it or not. 1.65 is sort of where I would have expected this house to sell. The unknown factor is how the updates appeal, right? And this is something that a lot of sellers want to know. Should I spend the money on the updates or not? And in some cases, it makes a lot of sense. But in other cases, there are factors about this house that drive its sale anyway. So doing some cosmetics, especially curb appeal on the outside, especially interior paint, that's cheap.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think I've not looked at. Maybe we could look at the photos, Hamish. I'll just do it really quick. Look at the Google map of because that will tell you if the old. Let's see if Google Maps actually went right to the street level. It doesn't do it in my neighborhood, but it does do it on this little cul-de-sac.
Yep, and they totally painted it. Yeah, it's the red brick, and yeah,
100%. Look at how old. So if you're listening along, and I think we're gonna need to remember this for our clients, and when they're asking us what should we improve, the answer is exterior paint is strongly recommended, and painted the brick, which, boy, if you're buying this home, you really want to know that they painted the brick properly, because there are some types of there's some types of paint that cause issues with brick, and don't adhere well. And you won't know for 3 to 5 years whether that was a problem or not. But mostly it's done right. We don't see brick paint issues that commonly, but it is a risk. So anyway,
that
interesting
house
deal.
to the left of it. Are you still on Street View?
No, I'm out.
Oh, okay. The house to the left of it is like one tone of beige, almost.
I saw that immediately. I'm like, that is so painful. Anyway, one tone of beige. Yeah. Yep, for before and after, and the market impact of mostly paint and maybe some other minor updates. This home flew off the market. And by the way, another deal where the listing agent was the seller. And I mean, here you see the listing agent doing it for herself, right? Taking her own advice and updating this home. But what's interesting about that is that it says the listing agent's the seller, okay? And I'm looking at that name, and then I go to the tax record, and it's not the same name. So I think if the listing agent is disclosing that she is the seller, then, you know what it says? It says seller is a licensed agent. So we don't necessarily know that the seller could be licensed and the agent is different. So we don't actually know that for a fact. But that increases the probability of it being a flip.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to keep time short, so I've got off topics, but I'm gonna bite my tongue.
Okay, our next one is 2830 Duke Circle, and this is a house in Table Mesa, and it's just off of Stevens Road. We had a listing on that road a couple of years ago. Great spot, a little bit steep, but excellent spot in the neighborhood. And I chose this one because it's a classic bi-level. Right, and it doesn't look like they've done much to it. They have certainly not done an addition. The windows have been replaced. The wall, so you walk in and that wall that separates the kitchen is gone. The railings have been updated and it's painted reasonably. The kitchen is updated, maybe not right away, or meaning recently, but updated, at least in the last 10 years. Octagonal tile is still cool. We did that with one of our listings recently. And bathrooms are updated. Paint scheme is reasonable. The herringbone tile pattern and the fixtures in the bathroom all look great. Everything looks completely turnkey. So this is a really good comp for a ton of ranches. A ton of bi-levels.
These bi-levels, yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many bi-levels in Table Mesa. So this tells you what fair market value for a good street,
nicely updated.
Table Mesa, with maybe, let's call it $100,000 of updates, which could have been a flip, sells for 1.4, listed at 1.45, sold for 1.4. And interestingly, these people did not own the house very long. They bought it in 2024 for 1.345. So you can go and look at the photos of what the home looked like when the seller acquired the house 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, and see if there were any improvements made. In fact, we could just do that really fast, Hamish, because that will also tell you. So, I can, and that will tell us whether there was any appreciation for this house, right? Like, did it look the same? And when I look at the photos from that time period, it's exactly the same. There are no differences. So now you know that Table Mesa has basically skidded sideways. Like, the difference in price between 1.345 and 1.4 is $55,000. $55,000 basically is covering most of the commissions. What's interesting, though, one more interesting piece is that the square footage was listed differently. So in the old listing, it was 1,788 square feet. And in the current listing, it's up to 1,818 square feet. So there is a little bit of due diligence to do is why is the square footage difference? It's possible the tax assessor has looked at it differently. That does happen. The lot size looks the same. Nope, the lot size is also different. So this is probably just a tax assessor difference.
Yeah.
But when you see that difference,
square footage updated on Zillow recently too.
Yeah, they may be getting more accurate mapping. So that's probably what that is. But it is, when you see that, you're a buyer, you should be looking at the old listing. And then, has there been any appreciation in Table Mesa? The answer appears to be no. And for this style of home and this style of location, and then has there been depreciation on the fixtures and finishes? Like, how much depreciation has occurred? Like, how much wear and tear has happened in 2 years? And then
how
when
hard
there's
was the home lived in? Yeah.
So you can look at those two listings and answer those questions. And if there's a difference in things like square footage or details, you need to understand why there's a difference, because it's not just square footage. The old one was listed at 4.3 with a 1-car attached. Okay, it is just square footage. Sorry, I thought there was another detail. Nope, that's it.
Okay. Yep.
All right, let's talk about our last sale of the week. 894 West Willow Street in Louisville, and this is a cute little ranch with a basement. There are a bunch of houses like this in Louisville. That were all built in the same time period in the late 70s. And this particular spot is a really nice spot on the street. It backs to the school's playground, the school's yard on a corner. And West Willow and Kennedy is a corner intersection. So you may want to have thought about traffic. Like, it's not amazing as a location, but it's decent. Yeah. And I don't know, was there a stop sign? So this is one of the things we look at.
And I was just about to bring this up. Yeah, nice.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Okay, maybe I would give it maybe a B+ for being on the corner of a stop sign. And I own a house on the corner of a stop sign. And what happens, it's not where I live currently, it's now a rental, but what typically happens is that you get acceleration of a vehicle that comes to a stop and then that gas it. But at least it's not a 4-way stop, right? It's a stop on, it's not a stop on the
two-way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 2-way stop. The Willow Street drives through, but Kennedy has the stop.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So, I don't know, B- from a location perspective.
Kennedy through, Willow has the stop.
Other way around. Okay. Yeah. So, the school is, I think you're far enough away from the playground that the kids playing are not going to be a factor, but it is something to think about. And we would have advised our client to go stand in the backyard during school hours and see if that's going to be a problem for you, because kids play, and when they play, they make a lot of sound, and that's great. They're sounds of children playing. Most people would not find offensive, but some do. And it's not like you're back into a tennis court where people are playing pickleball. That is a whole different level of sound that might annoy people, but the sound environment is something to think about when you're buying a house. And this is a pretty decent location. And now I'm just curious, Hamish, since we've established our 1,000-foot rule, it is 0.32 of a mile from McCaslin, which is over 1,000 feet, and then it's over 1,000 feet from South Boulder Road. So it passes the 1,000-foot test from busy roads.
Yep. Confirmed.
Yep. So decent house in this price range. It sold for $1,000 over list. We know the listing agent. We really like working with that team. I know the buy-side agent too. We've done deals with her in the past. So these are both reputable agents on a decent house, paid $1,000 over list to get it done. And I think it was a decent buy for the buyer. It does have updates. It's not original. The bathrooms are updated. The kitchen, I think, is updated as well. The popcorn in the basement, you always want to test for asbestos. Yeah, kitchen is reasonably updated.
It's a deep home, right? It's not particularly wide from the street, but it looks like it goes fairly far back into the lot. For 2,164 square feet.
It's a better home than you could buy in Martin Acres for $800, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the way I would think about it, is if you're agnostic to Martin Acres or Louisville, you don't care about being in the city, Louisville's a really good alternative. It has far lower property crime. It's got a great little downtown area. It's a great community, and it's only a few minutes away from the city of Boulder, and you get a lot more house if you can find it. And I think the listing agent, the buyer's agent, was smart to be aggressive, pay a little more over list, get that offer in right away, get it under contract, and get it, lock it down. It does look like there was a $500 concession that the seller paid, but it's likely something pretty minor on inspection.
Yeah. I do laugh, like, of the 3 times it snowed, they had photography on that day.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Okay,
Shameless.
So that is our sales of the week. Let's talk about shameless self-promotion. And we'll keep this pretty brief because our time is getting a little bit short. And shameless self-promotion is a segment where we talk about our buyers or sellers. And in this particular case, we have a family buyer. And I say family buyer because we represented their family members last year on an acquisition in Table Mesa and in Devil's Thumb. And now the parents would like to be closer to their adult children, and in particular their granddaughter. And their granddaughter is super adorable and one of my favorite clients from last year. So I get it. I would want to be close.
Yeah.
If I had a granddaughter, I'd want her to be like that one and be closer to her too. So this is sort of the real estate equivalent of an anchor baby. Like the grandchild often brings the grandparents, and that's what's happening here.
True.
And these are seasoned home buyers. And they're really lovely people too, just like their family here in town. And they've owned historic homes and remodeled historic homes in the past, so they know what they're getting into. And that's what they're looking for. They would like something architecturally unique, architecturally of value, historic if possible, and they're okay doing some remodeling. And so we just looked at 715 14th Street. I can't comment further about that house, but we did produce a 30-plus minute video just for these clients to take a closer look at it, because we think it might be worthy. And I might talk about that house further in the upcoming House Einstein Fresh Listings newsletter. That's when I can talk about active listings and share my insights with the public. I won't be sharing the video we produced because it's it's an occupied house. The seller's things are in the house. That video was really to point out what's right and what's wrong. And there were a number of things that maybe I'll talk about it in the newsletter. But I wanted to bring up these clients. What we're promoting is not this particular house, but what they're looking for. And they definitely don't want to be right next to students, but they love homes that are Rose Hill, that are on the hill but far away from student areas, that are lower Chautauqua or in Chautauqua itself. Downtown might work, but I don't think they want to spend as much. The Mapleton Hill Historic District is probably, I don't think they really want to go that deep in.
It's pretty spendy, yeah.
But this isn't their primary home, so I think they're willing to deal with some compromises in terms of size and layout. And they really love interesting and historic homes, and so do I. So I was happy to go look at this house for them. And if you happen to know of a listing or you own a home that you're thinking about selling that is historic and architecturally interesting and reasonably well maintained, reach out because we may have a buyer for you.
Yeah. Nice. I was at closing with them But I think that's the last communication I've gotten. Occasionally you'll CC me with their emails, but I think you're a main point of contact with these guys.
I mean, that's how it should be. You're backup, Hamish, for when I'm not available, but you need to be aware of what's happening in case I'm out of town so you can pick up the slack.
We got along fine. I think it's just,
It's just how it is. Okay, so let's talk about our news items. And if you're following any social media that is about Boulder, you'll know that the Dark Horse has announced their official closing date, and that is March 14th. So about a month from now, they're going to shutter their doors, and it will mark the end of an era for this 50-year-old institution. And it's been a favorite for CU students and locals. It's one of our last remaining dive bars. It's packed with weird nostalgia from movie sets.
It's a landmark,
it's really unique, and the prices are still extremely reasonable for drinks. But ever since they announced they were closing 6 months ago, it's been a zoo over there. It's I bet you their business has more than doubled on average, if not more. And now that they're officially closing, and the date has set, this is just a good news piece to remind you to get in there and say goodbye if it matters to you. And in fact, our team is going there tonight for what I think will be our last happy hour at the Dark Horse, because we've had a couple since the announcements.
Yeah,
a couple of meetings
around this time. We went out there for a farewell, made a little reel, posted it, and then some of the comments were acting like we're the ones shutting it down. I don't know.
I mean, people love the Dark Horse. And it's had the same owner for most of that time period, but I think that owner might be done. There are rumors that it's moving to a new location, but I don't know if that's true or not, and we shall see. It hasn't been formally announced.
Yeah. There was, apparently, I was reading today, the developer made a deal with the owners of the Dark Horse to help them find a new location. So the rumor has a little bit of merit that's been reported on, but we will see. Yeah.
Word on the street is they've found a new location, and they'll be moving. So say goodbye and then prepare to say hello to the new Dark Horse. We'll find out. We don't know that for a fact. It's an interesting rumor. We'll leave it at that.
And then this Watercliff approacheth? Approacheth. Okay.
You don't know what that word means?
Approacheth, I understand. I was like... Yeah. This one, I mean, we just found kind of an article on it, but boy, I mean, we're on a record low snowpack this year. A very, very, very dry winter.
Oh, but Hamish, this issue with the Colorado River has been going on for a very long time. And a lot of states draw from the lower basin, and the Bureau of Reclamation, Department of the Interior, said it needed the states to reach agreement by February 14th, which did not happen. And I don't know how this is going to play out, but basically the lower basin states have been drawing more than they should have been drawing. Some of that is because of leaky infrastructure.
Yeah.
And we've also had diminishing rainfall and snowfall. It's a really big deal. And I think this is pointing to, with climate change, a pretty big sticking point, right? Like when you look at cities like Phoenix and they're watering their lawns like they have limitless water, something has to change, right? And the upper basin states, I think, have an advantage, including Colorado, because we're the origination of where the Colorado River is drawing all that water. But this is an issue to pay attention to, because I think it could have a pretty big impact on real estate values. Development, expansion, and continued sustainability depend on water.
Yeah, I've seen the argument on the watering of lawn, especially, I mean, like, the argument all this time is, right, like, cities like, and I'm not saying this as it's my perspective, because a lot of people I hear, say, like, Las Vegas shouldn't even exist, right? It's in the middle of a desert. It's, unsensible and things. And then another argument that I'm hearing is, like, a lot of the usage is agriculture, especially in, like, arid environments and things where it's also doesn't necessarily make sense for you to be growing crops in the middle of a desert. I think there's got to be a discussion about, like, where are we using our resources, and I like the idea of being able to use for and what you want and as you see fit, no matter the climate, but specializing based on location kind of has a sense too, right?
I mean, there are 7 states. Arizona, California, and Nevada are the lower basin. Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and New Mexico are considered the upper basin. And it doesn't appear to be much of a punishment for missing these deadlines. The lower basin is offering to cut their allocations, and the upper basin is saying it's not enough. And I think the upper basin has the leverage in this negotiation. But from the real estate perspective, is that this could have an impact on valuations and the growth of cities, the future development. The Front Range is probably perfectly adequately positioned, but people are concerned about the water table, given how little snowpack we've had this year. But this is a much bigger issue than this year's snowpack. And it's one of these things that are approaching, you see it coming, but just like with climate change, it's happening at a pace that it's like you realize you're in the boiling water when the water starts boiling, right? Like it's too late at that point. And then I think we may already be at a too late point. It's just a question of how this is going to play out.
That's, I was talking a lot about like Chimney Hollow. From what I've seen, their predictions, they're going to be fine all summer. And thankfully, right, they got, I guess, the reservoir started to be filled or mostly filled by the end of 2025. Prior to this year's reliance on the snowpack. And yeah, it's snowpack per year versus this overarching thing. It's almost like weather versus climate, but for water supply, right?
If you're Phoenix or Las Vegas, you should be a little worried on long-term sustainability. And these places are roasting hot to begin with, right? And they rely on so much energy to cool all these residences and businesses. What will it look like in 100 years? We won't be around, probably, but I think it's going to look pretty different.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? You might benefit from the Yamanaka factor therapy that's coming out in a few years. I might be too old. By the time it comes,
oh yeah, the Yamanaka.
By the time it affects you, Hamish, it might actually be affordable. But I probably would have to give up every dollar I have just to get the treatment. Which maybe might be worth it.
Could be. I don't know. We'll run that calculus in podcast 1054. But I've got a friend who lives in Arizona right now, and he manages like a neighborhood of rentals. And not a single house has a yard, which is dystopian in my eye. It's all just rocks. And then, they're cooled. They've got a nuclear power plant. It's like very, it almost seems super kind of 50s nuclear family, like prop up out of nowhere type of development. It's Buckeye, Arizona. Interestingly, though, he's in Flagstaff, Arizona right now skiing because they got like 14 inches over the past couple of days. So, wild times. Alrighty, so I think you were right, Oz. I did bring up solar in that I was getting it, but we're now producing. I have reliable measures for how much I'm consuming and producing and exporting and importing and all these things. And I've learned a little nuance just yesterday about time of use metering and the credit rollover that I have with Excel. So I thought it'd be interesting to bring up. My system as well, there's 2 ratings. So important as a buyer, if you are looking at a solar PV system and they say, well, I'll use mine as an example, it's sized at 11.89 kilowatts. That's the DC rating. So once it passes through inverters, it's going to have an AC rating, which is closer to what you'll actually see. So my AC rating is 10.1 kilowatts, which is still a pretty decent amount. It's about 130% of what I consume annually is the projected output of it, and I'm already seeing that to be the case. I did recently lose somebody living here. Not like they're dead, but they're no longer living here. And
they might as well be dead.
As far as the budget's concerned. But no, so like my usage has already gone down quite a considerable amount, and I am net positive on my production in the winter where the sun angle is at its lowest and my production is at its lowest, and it should be the cloudiest and the snowiest, which it's not. And I can see all this real-time stuff, but prior to getting solar, I was on time of use, and it was something that I could game, right? Like I could shift all my electrical loads. I am majority work from home, so I can run the laundry and do the dishes and use electricity intensive applications during the off-peak season. I think it's about 6 cents a kilowatt hour, but on peak is 18 cents a kilowatt hour. So it gets I think like 2.7 times more expensive to use electricity between the hours of 5 to 9 p.m. And I was like, well, I'm selling solar to Excel and then buying it back in kind of this virtual credit system. And I like to think of it as a virtual battery. Well, it turns out if I'm running time of use, I'm selling it to Excel during the daytime at 6 cents and then buying it back from them at 18 cents. So all this power that I'm generating during the day, I'm buying back for 2.7 times more expensive. So I called Excel yesterday, and over the next 30 days, they're going to swap me to an average system where it's 8 cents out, 8 cents in.
Nice.
And that's
way better.
Yeah, but I'm talking to GPT, and I pay the $20 thing, and I have it's like GPT 5.2, and then 5.3 is they've got like the coding thing. But I'm like, hey, does this make sense? And it's like, yeah, you should keep your time of use. And I go back and forth with it like 3 times, and I'm like, how should I keep my time of use? And like break down the math, and it's like, oh yeah, for your instance, you shouldn't. And that was funny because I was like, it had me second guessing. And so I ran the math myself and then, checked again, and then eventually called the Excel people. And I was like, I'm not crazy for wanting to average this out. And they're like, no, you're completely right. Like it is financially, like it makes sense to generate at the same cost that you're importing. All this to say some actual production numbers. Right now I'm 7.2 kilowatts as recording, and consuming 0.9. So I'm exporting 6.4 kilowatts to the grid. Power is measured over time, so if that were to go on for an hour, I would have exported 6.4 kilowatt hours, which is great. I mean, over today, I have not yet canceled out my consumption through the night, and I'll get into that. But for the week, we're at 9.4 kilowatt hours exported. And because I have this surplus, the kind of end goal and the I'm not even talking about the environmental benefits, whatever on those, the EPA greenhouse gases don't even do anything anymore. But from an economical standpoint, I've been wanting to get off of gas for a while. It kind of fluctuates. And I mean, with the data centers and electricity, I wanted to kind of get away from being at market price in general. And with this overproduction, I've kind of been trialing a plan for heating my house only with electric heat. And I got a mini split last year, if you also recall, longtime listeners. And so now that I have all this data at my disposal, and I'd like to get meters for the mini split so I can see that a little bit more granularly, I can start to run these space heaters at duty cycles. So I have 2 oil-filled radiators on smart switches in the basement, and they're running 5 minutes on, 15 minutes off throughout the day. And they, over the past couple of nights, our average lows, call it like 30 Fahrenheit. They've maintained 63 degrees. And I haven't ran my furnace now since Saturday morning, and it's Wednesday. And so I'm getting away from gas altogether. I still have a gas water heater. And in the summer, looking at my usage, I can calculate about 10 therms a month, no matter what, in gas. Granted, that was when I had two roommates. Now we're only down to 1. And so, yeah, I'll keep my eyes out and watch it. I don't have independence, per se, right? Like, I don't have a battery system, so if there's an outage, I'm screwed on that. But the way this credit thing works, and once I shift over to average pricing instead of time of use, peak and off-peak pricing, this overproduction becomes a 1-to-1 conversion. And it's still technically a 1-to-1 conversion off-peak hours, but the peak hours, 5 to 9 p.m., that's everybody's peak hours, realistically, right? That's peak demand. People get home from work, people are cooking, that's when you do your life admin and you're consuming the most, typically. So it'll be nice to get that 1-to-1 conversion properly again, and it is just very cool to see how much is being produced, and because it is all smart switches and things, and when the internet is working, I'm able to program and switch things on the fly and work it out. And with this too, I upgraded my thermostat, which only manages the gas furnace, but now it's you can export the data and the runtime and the outdoor ambient and all those things into a CSV, and you can get that information and work it against your square footage and all these things, and you can work out your thermal efficiency of the house and take that loosely and then convert that into kilowatt hours and then work on the duty cycles with that. And it's not one-to-one. The predicted or calculated kilowatt hours needed to replace the furnace is way higher than I could possibly do, yet at the duty cycle that I'm working with, I'm able to maintain it. So there's definitely some fudginess, but it's a fun little optimization thing. This is something that I think since I was a kid and getting scolded by my mom for running the space heater for too long, I've always been curious about, like, well, what is the actual cost and how do all these things factor? And yeah.
Do you have a kilowatt?
I do, actually, right here.
Okay. Super useful for seeing what appliances are actually drawing. And are you planning to get a EV in the future?
That's, I think, why my solar company put me at 130%. And I wouldn't mind an EV in the future. The Ioniqs look pretty good. The R2 would be sweet. But at the same time, I've got my... Sweet. Yeah, and that Scout thing that you mentioned, too, was awesome.
I mean, for what you do for the real estate work at House Einstein, a cheap Nissan Leaf that's only a couple years old, you can... What's that?
I don't think the range is there for the Leafs. I was looking at those.
I think they are. I mean, what's your average daily distance?
It depends, right? Because with the Hover Ridge listing, that I was 120 miles for the day or something, like pretty crazy. Because I was jumping Boulder, Longmont, home, all around.
You could stop at a supercharger and just pay a couple bucks, just like a gas station, to get through it in 20 minutes. You can get charged to 0.5% or half the battery. The Leaf has supposedly 150. Well, I guess it depends on which model you get. But the first one I'm clicking on CarMax has got a 150-mile range, and it's under $15,000. And it's 6 years old. The 150-mile range is what they had when they were new. That probably covers most. But it looks like EVs are depreciating like crazy, and so you should be able to get a low mileage. It looks like an Econo, like it's not exciting. It's not an R2. No, it's not a Rivian R3. Like there's no emotion. It's an appliance, but your current daily is an appliance too. Yeah,
and that, I'm gonna, I think, cross the EV bridge a little bit later. Also longtime listeners know that I'm like classic BMWs, and so I've got my appliance Hyundai, and then the classic BMWs are not a sensible decision from a fuel efficiency standpoint at all, though it all works in offsets and comes around. So if I can get the house entirely free, aside from like the fixed charges from Excel, then I'll have a whole lot more to waste on a 7,000 pound 7 Series that loves its gas.
You could get an i3. They're wicked fast.
I've looked at those,
and they're cheap.
The i3s with the range extender, the hybrid, those are cool, and they're super quirky. They'll fit that's actually what I've been looking at. But alas, right, I lost a roommate. I'm going to let some things shake down. But I had some, I don't know, Oz, if the name's familiar, but the Angry Ass, and their logo's a donkey. They're trying to position themselves as like Singer for BMW. They drove to Texas in an i3 while we were driving all our classics and stuff down there, and they're two boys from Texas and like big fellas, and they're chugging along in their i3. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, the gas difference and your electric variable per mile, I think you would make up the difference pretty fast. You just need to put it into a spreadsheet and see how quickly it would pay itself off.
Mm-hmm. And I need to get this the duty cycles and everything figured out too for the solar excess heat and all that. But the mini split's been doing pretty okay. I wouldn't say it's amazing. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, we're gonna punt my Carveout for the next episode because we are fast approaching the 2-hour mark. No worries. I'd rather have more time for it, and we'll tease it to the next one because it is a deep rabbit hole. There's a lot to it. Some of you may not even know what a toy hauler is. So we kind of have to go down that one and have our time for it. And I'd rather respect the audience and get it wrapped up in two. So I just wanted to say thank you if you've made it this far for joining us on the House Einstein podcast. You've squandered another perfectly good 2 hours with us, which we deeply appreciate. Hopefully we did our mission of entertaining you, and maybe you learned a thing or two along the way about what's happening in our local real estate market and beyond. If you'd like more of our content, you'll find us on social media on all the usual sites. You can also visit houseeinstein.com if you'd like to learn more about how we help buyers and sellers. You can see our bios. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can see my phone number and call me directly, and we're more than happy to help you with your real estate needs. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to your feedback. Have a great day.
Bye.